place to be is living free in Tennessee.
All right, well, it's time for some Tuesday coffee chat action today, and I'm stoked to get both Becky Cook and Toolman Tim Cook on for an interview. When I saw them, I think it was like a week and a half ago, I was like, Becky, you should be on too. And she said, all right. So we made it happen. Thanks for making time for us. I'm not going to have you guys introduce yourselves because I think our audiences have so much crossover that everybody knows who you are. But this is our Tuesday coffee. What's in your cup today? I got hollow roast in mine.
I've got hollow roast too, and I'm using this crazy little coffee straw thing that I absolutely fell in love with. It's so stupid and simple, but it works. So
I've got Tim Hortons steamed tea.
Oh, you do have tea.
Yeah.
Oh, look at you.
You haven't? I was like, I could tell by the look on Becky's face that she has tea today. She was like, whoop.
Yeah, I'm not a coffee drinker, but it's the Keurig pods from Tim Hortons. So
yeah,
it's the tea. Yeah.
People always kind of look at me apologetically who don't drink coffee, and they're like, I don't drink coffee. And I'm like, that's cool. You shouldn't drink coffee if you don't like it. Leaves more for those of us who do like it, right?
Could you imagine being such
that
a people
straw
pleaser?
first, Tim. I want to, like you told me before we went on, but how's that straw work?
That is so weird. So
well, you got to tell him the whole story.
Yeah.
It was actually supposed to be for his stocking for Christmas, but Mr. Cook can't resist open Amazon packages.
So everything shows up to the house. I don't know any better, and I just start ripping and tearing. And so Becky's always on the lookout for neat little gadgets for me to bring up, like to do little quick reviews on and stuff. And when I saw this, I won't lie, I thought it was the biggest gimmick in the world. And I mean, here it is. This is what it looks like. So you basically grind your coffee, you put a heaping tablespoon in your cup, you pour boiling water, let it sit 4 minutes, and then you drink your coffee through a straw. Now, if that sounds like a recipe for disaster, it's the complete opposite. I love it. It's got a little filter on the bottom, and it has a silicone tip up here that kind of disperses the heat just enough. So you basically, it's like the world's smallest French press, but it's also like cowboy coffee. And for whatever reason, I just love the flavor and the smoothness of it. And I fell in love with it. Like, I thought, I'll do it 2 or 3 times to get a review out of it. And now I use the damn thing all the time. So,
Do you
call me
the
a
box
heathen.
it came in?
I don't. I have an extra one. I'll see if I can send you a picture, but it's only about $20. It just comes on a card. It doesn't even come in a box.
And it's from Amazon.
Amazon, yeah.
Yeah,
And
I feel
it's,
like Becky should just wrap the card without the straw and put that in your stocking.
But it ain't yeah, I think there's about 5 or 6 things that were supposed to be surprises for his stocking, and he's got them already.
Yeah, it's,
he can't control himself.
It's about the same as how I used to make her rebuy the kids' Easter chocolate all the time because it would disappear.
I don't know where that went.
Babe, we need to buy Easter bunnies. Yeah.
Well, I see we got Survival Punk on this morning, and Beth Emily, welcome. Pippinized, one step closer, you guys. If you want us to cover a topic or you want to add a comment, write the word question or comment in all caps. And also don't forget to like and share out that we are live. Letty is here just to let people know, because this conversation, I actually wanted y'all on because you've made some hard choices and you've started dropping things this year.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
We have.
So what made, because I'm in the same place. So I was like, oh, we're all doing it at the same time. What got you to that place? How did you realize it? And then, we'll go from there. Ask me questions too.
You want to go first?
Honestly, I think what got us, I'd say we're all probably in the same age bracket. And because I don't want to assume anybody's age, but I'm old. So
I'm probably older than you.
but with me, it was once I hit 45, I realized it's like I have to slow down, and because I don't want to be like, in Canada they just raised the retirement age to 67. I don't want to work till I'm 67.
Oh no, we're not even going to be close.
No, I don't. And I realized if we have so many so many small fires going, then it's going to monopolize my time all the time. And I don't want to be like that. And we're not going to have, we obviously don't have any more kids, but the twins are going to be 15 and we want to be able to enjoy them. And I'm hoping eventually we'll have grandkids, and I don't want my time being constantly monopolized and I can't enjoy my grandkids. And that's when I just kind of started realizing that. And then I said to Tim, I was just like, well, we have to slow down a little bit. We have to start.
I think it started maybe 2 years ago when she said, the daycare was finally starting to take off. And she said, you know what, hon, you need to figure out what you're going to get rid of. And so we put all seasons maintenance. So actually, it's pretty cool that we're on here right now. So in less than a month, 5 years ago to the day is when I launched my YouTube channel. When I came on your podcast, Nicole, and talked about all seasons maintenance. And that was our baby. I mean, we spent, and if yes, did I work hard out in the snow? Sure. Mrs. Cook worked twice as hard behind the scenes, doing the books and finding me businesses or, customers, and then coming out when there was too much snow and helping me with it. And she's like, you got to sell that. It's time to move on from one thing. So we split it and we kept the property management, but we sold all the hard stuff, all the stuff that made the least money, but the most work. And, which was crazy, but I sold it to a local guy who is just awesome. And we're still good friends. So that's a sign that the business sold well. And we talk all the time. And I got talking about this the other day with him. And it was about being an entrepreneur. And I told him, here's the biggest thing. I remember when I first started taking Saturdays and Sundays off when I was doing all seasons maintenance. I was still making as much money, but I wasn't as busy. And I realized that it's not your customer's fault, but your customers will let you work 24/7, 365 days a year if you let them. And in other words, if you give yourself permission to work every single day of the year, you will do it. But if you give yourself permission to work 5 days a week, you'll do that as well. And so that's where we started with all seasons maintenance, wasn't it, babe?
Well, that, and because I was helping you with the snow.
Yeah.
We didn't have the 2 locations of the daycares up in Lloyd. So I was working in Provost. So I was getting up with him at 5 o'clock in the morning, helping him with snow. I'd come home and then I'd have to go work all day at the daycare. And that's when I told him, I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm too old for this. And my energy is depleted and it's hard for me to keep up with 27 kids running around all day when I've been up doing snow. So that's when I told him, I said, we have to cut back.
And the big part of that too is stupid buzzwords, but prioritize it, figuring out the things that are the most important. Because if you noticed, I was doing a lot of road trips, and each road trip got progressively longer. The first one was 18 days and the final one was 57 days. And when you have 14-year-old girls at home and a wife who's running businesses, that's too much to put on them. And I realized that I was trying to build this brand probably before I should, or at least maybe to the extent, because I was sitting in the hotel in Tennessee, and I realized, like, my girls are home. I could easily be there with them. Charlotte had her volleyball, and I was like, I'm done for the next 3 years. That they are the priority, is being home, taking them to all the events, having fun with them. We've implemented a movie night where we sit down and watch a movie with the girls. And it's just, I don't know. You realize it's like you could absolutely fill your time with whatever you want to, and people will let you. It's not that people will let you do it, because they don't really know. They're ambiguous. They'll if you'll allow them, they'll let you do work for them. But if you allow it yourself, you get yourself in a mess. So that's where we're at, isn't it? And
Yeah,
there's
I think
other things we've dropped too. Sorry.
the hard thing is to realize or to embrace that wherever you put your energy and whatever you make space for is the thing that's going to happen. And so if you're working on a project or a series of different things that take a lot of time and effort and energy and don't yield the payoff, whatever that is, whether it's money, community building, whatever your goal with that is, make you happy, then you can build yourself into working all the time on the thing you hate because it takes the most, and you don't get anything from it. Like when you don't make the money or you don't make some other reward, I'm thinking about learning how to spin wool, right? Like I have this reward that I like spinning wool, and it like settles my mind. Then you're in trouble. But if all of your rewards are non-financial, then it doesn't matter how happy you are, you can't afford your rent, and then you end up back at a job, right? So my realization happened this year because I haven't actually shared with everybody everything that happened in my personal life this year, and I'm not going to, because it's like, I feel like when you put all the personal drama out there, it invites more drama.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
people know the large strokes, but there was a hurricane of things happening all year long, and it started in like February, or maybe it was January already. But as a result of that, I realized I couldn't do everything I had committed to. And so when people started asking me to do new things, mostly speaking at events, I just started saying no in February.
Mhm.
I was just like, I already know, I can already see where this is going right now, and I'm just going to disappoint everybody, and they're going to be mad at me, right? So that's what made me realize it. And then I started taking a really hard look at what made money versus didn't make money, and what the other payoff was. Like, my podcast doesn't quote unquote make me money, but it does, because Hollow Roast would not sell to the extent. I was just telling you, I had a record 2 weeks. It would not sell to that extent without the podcast, I don't think. So that's what made me realize it. And then I feel like I love to hear your story about how you sold your thing in 1 month. I'm like, and then I spent the next 10 months trying to drop things in a way that wasn't insulting, because you commit to things and you want to finish the thing you commit to. So what would you say about that? Like, when you're committed like that and feel stuck?
Well, personally, Mr. Cook has a hard time with that. And that's where, because I find with me, I don't like, he has his connection, his community and stuff. And I adore everybody in the community and everything, but I don't have that personal connection. I find, so like, if it's something where he's like, oh, I can't tell them because I don't, and I'm like, who do I have to message? So I'll message them and I'll be like, listen, Tim ain't coming, deal with it. Right. So, but he always feels really bad. And then for like a week afterwards, he's like, oh, I should have. And it's like, no, you can't. If you are already on the fence of whether or not you should or shouldn't, then you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because you're already feeling that stress and that buildup of anxiousness that it's not worth it in the end. But even if you made $1,000, $5,000, and you have that anxiousness, it's not worth it. It really isn't, because you'll make that money somewhere else.
And something else that we've run into is that the bigger the businesses that you're running, the more income that's coming in, the more that you have to, the harder it becomes to justify going away to something else. I remember talking to Paul Wheaton at the event we went to there in Washington a couple of years ago. And he said, I forget exactly what it was. It was a fairly large number at the time. At least I thought it was. He goes, that's what I need to make to be away from my property for a day. And that's exactly where we're at, is that the daycares are doing really, really, really well. So something that we didn't think would take all of our time and priority 5 years ago has now become the thing we want to, because I talked about this many moons ago and we've lived by it. And I call it the spaghetti method. And there's probably a better name for it, but it's the whole idea of throwing a bunch of things at the wall when you first start and seeing what sticks. And at first it's really easy. You're like, well, I'll pick anything that makes me a little bit of money. But eventually what you end up running into is some of the stuff that sticks could make you decent money, but you eventually got to figure out what are the things that are making you the most money for the least amount of time. Because we want to be able to both, we want to be filthy rich and be able to have all the time in the world. Do you know what I mean? Right. And I think everybody does. And so for us, it's like, okay, where do we find that balance? And sometimes and I've talked to my good buddy, Brian Alexovich from the Lots Project. We beat ideas back and forth because we've always been kind of in the same realm of content creation. And it comes down to, yes, I could spend a bunch of time on this and it would probably make me some good money, but I have to put more time into, in our instance, the daycare. So for us now, it's been, the daycare is probably a 4-day-a-week priority for me and a 7-day-a-week for Becky. and then I have property management for a day, and then content creation for a day. And that, other than family, there's no time left. So a lot of things had to go.
And I came to the realization, like I'd say the last 6 months, if you tell someone no and they get offended by that, it's their problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's not your problem. Because I was the same way. I would be like, oh, they're going to be upset. They're going to be offended. But I've come to the realization the last 6 months, like I said, it's like, you know what? That's a you problem. And if you're going to be offended by something that I can't physically or mentally do, that at that point becomes no longer my issue. And if they're going to be offended and upset about it, that's something they need to work through, because you can't let that rule your life, worried about how other people are going to react to what you're going to say and do, like for your own health.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's a gift when you say no, even if it hurts. Like sometimes when people say no to me, it hurts for a second.
Absolutely.
Right. But I accept the no. And then usually it's a better thing long term anyway. And having that clarity means we haven't spent months with an underlying looming tension that I don't know why it's there, that I can totally tell is there. Mm-hmm. Which I find stressful, and they don't feel like I'm taking advantage of them because they said yes when they didn't want to.
And it's nothing worse though too. Like if you get someone who constantly plays along with you, and then you get to the point, and then all of a sudden, like 3 days before, they're like, "Oh, guess what? No."
Yeah,
and then
that's way worse.
Then you're like, "What?"
Reminds me of some tenants in property management. The one that'll show up to the house, absolutely love it, and say, I want it right now, and then give you a string of excuses for the next 20 days about why they don't have the money to pay for it.
Oh yeah, I don't wait for them.
No, I kick them a long time, but that's the type of game they try to play, string you along. It's like, nope, we're done.
It's what I tell the kids now. I'm like, whenever they're like, Mom, I don't know what to do, and I'm like, well, there's this word in the English dictionary that starts with N and ends with O.
No, thank you is the polite way.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying no thank you on a regular at the daycare. Yeah. That's what we have to come to. No thank you.
No thank you, friends.
No thank you, friends. No thank you. But it no is probably the hardest word, but yet the most effective word. And it's the hardest word in the English language. It really is. And I think you have to get to a certain point in your life when you realize, like, just for your own sanity, you have to start using it.
Yeah.
And one thing I've found about a lot of this is if you're thinking about dropping something, you need to drop it. Because if it's on your mind, it will not leave until you drop it.
It'll burn you out.
A good example of that for me would be the Patch of the Month Club. I worked really, really hard to build that, and we got around 50 subscribers, and it was a pretty cool thing that everybody, they loved and would post it on social media. And, would I consider it a success? I mean, financially, probably not. It was kind of a break-even thing, but it was a really cool product to have built. And I went back and forth probably for a solid 6 to 8 months where I knew I needed to do it, and I just refused to do it. It's like moving my podcast off the main channel to another one. If you're thinking about doing something, you need to do it, because if it's on your mind, there's a reason for it.
But then he was roping me into helping.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't have time for that.
You're like, I run the daycare empire. That's what I do.
I don't have time for this, Mr. Cook. And I love doing it with him, but I'm just like, I don't have time for this.
Eventually it's like, pull the damn Band-Aid off, just do it. And I've gotten a lot better at it. I'm just like, nope, I make up my mind and I'm doing it. And then I announce it. Once you announce it, it's done, right? So you make the announcement first and then do everything else behind the scenes. And but that's what happens. You just got to pull the Band-Aid off. And a lot of times, we've thought about, of the 3 locations of the daycare, one is a bit of a charity case.
Honestly, it's a thorn in my ass. It really is.
And it's a bit of, it's kind of really right. Would it be break even? Kind of. But so we keep, anyway. Yeah. So that's where we're at on that.
So you're dropping that next year?
Maybe. We'll see.
Well, we're kind of, that's the problem. Like that's the thing with the daycare. It's like, this is where we run into the problem. You're like, okay, well, you know what? It's not thriving like we should. And then the next week we get 7 enrollments. And then you're just like, oh,
this is where we make our excuses about why we
can't-
haven't shut it.
Now we can't shut it down because we just had 7 new kids. And then we get them guys and we're just like, oh, we're still on it. And then I had an email yesterday for 4 more kids. So it's like, you can't, like every time you start going downhill, like, okay, you know what? But then it goes back up and you're just like, oh, that thorn just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
So this is the example of saying that we still struggle with this, even though, you know what I mean? Like, just because the problems get slightly bigger doesn't mean you're always going to be good at pulling the damn Band-Aid off and moving on, because life is messy. You know, I remember for 2 years, I had a family member working for me in all seasons maintenance. And about every 6 months, I would go into like the LFTN group or somewhere else. I'd be like, I need advice, guys. I really need to fire this guy. And I wouldn't. And I didn't. And I finally did. And you know, did it create drama in the family? Sure, it did for a little while. But you know where my stress level went? Straight down.
Oh, well, you could tell it was my brother.
Yeah. So it took me 2 years to fire him. And when I finally did, I was like, oh my God, this is just blessed. Yeah. So
you can tell who it is. I don't care.
So sometimes it takes us, because here's the thing about life and about businesses is a business you build is almost like a kid, and everything's messy. You can always find excuses for not tearing the Band-Aid off. You can always find excuses for continuing to do what you're doing because parents need childcare, because people like coffee, because what will people say if you stop shipping patches out? But when it comes down to it, the longer you make excuses, the harder it gets. That's all. So, and I'm a classic excuse maker. So I this is coming from a place of experience.
Oh yeah. Well, I know on my coffee, because I had the realization 20% of my time goes into the hollow roast coffee.
Mm-hmm.
80% of my income comes from that.
So yeah, something's got to change.
And then I was like, a lot of my time goes into Self-Reliance Festival. I don't make any money on that. Right. And so, but I think I sell more coffee because, you know, so there's that intangible. And I was like, going into last year, I was already thinking Self-Reliance Festival needs 1 time a year. Yep. And not 2 times.
I believe I mentioned it before too.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned it too.
Excuse me.
Everybody's, then they're like, do it. You're like, if you're going to put that much time into something. Yeah. So that's why we went down to 1 time a year in 2025.
Yes. Proud of you, by the way.
And I mentioned it to Tim too, because when when we went to both SRFs and then we went to LFTN, when you were doing the one in the spring, I said to Tim, I'm like, is Nicole doing this one too? And I looked at him, I said, what the hell is wrong with her?
I almost died. I literally almost died in a car crash because of that, by the way.
Well, I looked at him, I said, what the hell is wrong with her? She's going to burn herself out. I'm like,
yeah, the LFTN spring workshop's going to be fan-freaking-tastic this time. Because I also don't have an event a month or 3 weeks before it.
Which we're not going to be at. So if anybody's looking, I've already said no. Just so
he has already said no. I asked him before this just to make sure, because I have some people coming to speak that y'all are going to love. But I just wanted to make sure I had it. And I need to confirm. I haven't confirmed with Alan Booker, but I think I'm going to have him do 2 half-day classes there.
Oh, that'd be good.
Yeah.
I need to make sure he really
We're so excited about things coming up in the new year. And yeah, but I told him, like, when I found out you were doing both, I told him, I said, you're nuts. Like, it's just because I know, coming from my angle, it's like, I would be so burnt out. When we came to SRF there, because I flew back into Edmonton at midnight and then left for Spain at 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
I was so burnt out. And that was supposed to be a vacation. That wasn't even I was so burnt out.
There's something that we probably should have dropped. Hey, poor baby.
I had Spain booked for a whole year. I wouldn't have missed that for the world. But I couldn't imagine having to run an entire event on top of that. I would have lost it.
So I see this from Hardway. Do you want to read it, or Nicole?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So Hardway says 2 guys cut wood all day long. One guy disappears for 3 hours each day, but cuts twice as much wood. The other guy asks, "Where do you go, man?" He says, I go to sharpen my, I'm thinking it's supposed to be saw.
Yeah, it's probably the chain.
Sometimes work smarter than harder. So This reminds me of my grandfather. He's long been gone. He used to cut pulpwood. If anybody doesn't know what that is, I was lucky enough not to have to deal with it, but my dad did. So they would cut softwood trees, and because they'd get a couple extra cents per tree, they would peel the bark off it. And so my grandfather was able to get about twice as much done as almost anybody else. And the main reason is at the end of the day, he would drop all kinds of trees for the next day. He would sharpen his saw. He would sit on a stump, make sure it was sharpened. Everything was ready so that when he showed up the next morning, he could go to work. Everybody else was sitting down, messing with their saws, felling their first three or four trees. And there's something about having things in place ahead of time. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was survival punk. See, that baby says, outsource, I'll fire anybody for $20.
Yeah, he said I was a saint with children. I'm trying to figure out who he is.
Yeah, he had his children in your program
Yeah.
at SRF.
Oh,
Yeah,
did he?
yeah.
Okay.
I met him, but didn't realize he was survival punk until after.
We
Yeah,
should like
because
have
I'd heard him
him
on your
next
show
one or
before.
something. He should
Yeah.
email me about that.
Did his kids have fun? Did they have fun?
Yeah.
Oh, they told me they did.
Oh,
Yeah.
everybody loved the program. As brutal hot as it was under that tent.
Oh, I was like.
Do you know what
I
we
thought
have
it
in
was gonna
October? Climate
I-
control for kids.
Yes.
That's awesome.
And actually, I talked to my sister, and she's
Game
pumped
for
about
coming.
coming. So because her and we run the daycare, so she's pumped about coming.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So
And
I
there's
wanted
flushy toilets right outside the door.
to flushy to. Oh man,
even
I like
better.
that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk just a minute about what Survival Punk said about outsourcing, because the first thing I want to do is brag a little bit, because our daycares now. So we started with one that was about, we almost shut it down the first year, remember? And I mean, so now we have 3 locations getting ready to open a 4th. We have 50 employees roughly. I would say about 50 people on
I don't know.
staff.
I just been doing the Christmas
Yeah.
cards. I think it's like 46. I was
40
like, holy crap, why is there so many cards?
46 plus all of us. So
Yeah.
there's well over 50 people on staff now. And we work way less harder. That's such a bad way of saying
That's fine.
we don't work nearly as hard as we did 4 years ago when we had 7 kids and 2 employees. And you know why that is? Because we've hired the right people. We have directors in place at our 2 big locations that run everything for us.
Mhm.
And what did you hire? What I finally got you to hire?
I hired, I refer to her as my Tessa. It's good because we have a Tessa that works at the North Daycare. So whenever I'm talking to somebody, they're like, well, Tessa. And I'm like, my Tessa or the daycare Tessa? So I refer to her as my Tessa.
She would be an HR manager / CEO, wouldn't she?
/ accountant.
We originally
/
hired her to be our bookkeeper.
a bookkeeper, and she took on the role of registrations, accounting, payroll.
And more than that, the HR bullshit we deal with all
HR
the
crap.
time.
Yeah, she does the hiring, the firing. If someone text messages me and they have a complaint, she has made it abundantly clear that I am to respond with text Tessa. So she wants to handle everything, and that was a huge step for me, because I am a micromanager. I'm a control freak. I like, especially when it comes to like bills and money. I'm still having a hard time with it, but
She even pays our bills now. I
Well,
mean, our business bills.
she actually threatened me the other day that she was going to change the online banking password so I couldn't get into the account. And I'd be like, no, I'll behave, because she knows I'm a micromanager and I try not to be, but she threatened to change the password on me, and
It's the best thing we did was hiring her.
no, and I can't say enough good things about her. She's incredible. And I don't know if any of them watch it, but there's Carly, Brandon, Nikki, Ritu, Anita, Amy runs it up here, Grace, Liv. They're all like they're all doing what I do, and they're kicking ass. And Olivia and Grace are our oldest girls. Olivia is a machine.
Oh yeah.
She has, like, she's 25, and she was up at Lloyd yesterday, and she's down here. She works 6 days a week. She's back and forth, and she's a machine. And I don't know.
She's doing now what we used to do.
Exactly. And I don't know what I would do without them. So they're.
And I would say, here's the other thing. Some people may be like, well, I can't hire a CEO. No, you're right. But here's what I mean by that is, look at things that are in your purview, things that are the things that need to get done, but maybe you don't need to do them. Because remember, your time's worth something. So that could mean, maybe I can't edit my videos. Maybe I send my videos to somebody on Fiverr for $20 and they edit them for me. It doesn't, I'm not saying you got to, hire a personal assistant, but what you need to do is look at the things that you don't need to be doing. And just because you think you do doesn't mean you need to. Maybe, if you have a significant other, ask them, what am I doing? Because we're really good like that, because each person sees their own blindness, right? So Becky's really good at saying, honey, you need to say no to this next event. And I'm like, no, I don't. And then I'm like, honey, you know what? You need to let Tessa start paying the daycare bills. And she's like, no, I don't. But guess what? Each time we listen to each other, it gets better. So, find somebody you can beat ideas around with. And it might be a fellow content creator. It might be a homesteader. It might be, like, everybody knows about chicken math, where you have 10 chickens and then everybody knows you have chickens. So then all of a sudden you now have 45 chickens. And it used to be fun to have a few eggs. And now it's a job that you're not really making any money from because you have to give your eggs away or sell them for nothing. And, so find somebody that you can beat ideas around with and say, like, this is what I'm thinking. Where are my blind spots? Because we're all blind to the things we think we love the most. So you need to have somebody else get in there and yap at you a little.
And anybody who's on the live stream, I'm always open to yapping.
Oh, nice.
I love yapping about businesses.
And I don't yap at all, so we're good.
Right. No, like it might take me a little bit of time to get back to somebody with an email, but I always try to help when I can.
Yeah, I think that our network, we have some pretty successful people in it who will reach out to you if they know you well and say, I see that you're doing this thing that looks highly ineffective.
Yes.
Right? And I have somebody riding my ass right now, by the way.
Good.
So it was great. So at Self-Reliance Festival, I was so pleased with how well it went this year. And, like the staff, there's some of which are in the comments, like Kiri and Letty and everybody who's in the comments and y'all doing, like having Bobby do the MC, like making sure things are on time the whole time, all of that made it go well. But it was a very, very heavy lift this year. That one was it for me. And I got to Self-Reliance Festival and I wasn't as burnout as usual.
Which is good.
Because people saw what was going on and they were like, okay, I'll take this piece. Okay, I'll take that piece. And for me, it was a very good teaching moment about you actually can outsource some shit, Nicole. Mm-hmm. Right. And then I run across Bear upstairs at John's and it's just, he's alone. Well, he has one person with him there, but he's just like, nobody else is up there. And I'm like, I actually, because things are going so well, can sit and talk to you, Bear, like person to person. And he said, so tell me about, your business and who's doing what. He's like, Nicole, this is going to be hard advice for you to execute because it's going to cost you some money. Write down everything you hate doing, that every time you're doing it, you hate doing it. And find somebody to do those things for you and pay them money. And it will cost you money at first, but you will concentrate on the things you love doing that move the business forward.
Yep.
And I just looked at him and said, oh, I think you are absolutely right. And I'm not very good at saying no when I'm in the middle of something I've committed to. I feel it's very important to do my best to finish the commitment. But this year in particular, it's been like, okay, I can tell while I'm in the middle of this, I should have said no. And so at the end of this, when they ask me to do this again, I'm going to say no. And I did that a number of times. And that was really hard for me to do too, Tim, because it's the same thing. Like, I don't want to disappoint people, but I'm not as good to the community or anywhere when I string myself out. And so that was a hard lesson. And I'm still learning it. Like, I'm still looking at this year going, should I speak at 25,000 events? No, I should not.
It's true.
Yeah.
I would say that, you know what? I guess another example that I haven't talked about quite as much this time, but again, when I said as an entrepreneur, your customers will let you fill your day. I don't blame the customers. It's just they're there. And so you can, as an entrepreneur, you can absolutely fill your day if you want to. And as a content creation person, you can also fill your day 24/7 with some form of content creation if you want to. If I look back to 4 years ago, there was a time when I was doing 5 or 6 lives a day. And I was doing 5 or 6 a week.
A week.
And I
I
was
was like,
doing,
what?
yeah, geez, yeah, sometimes 2 or 3 lives in
3
a
is
day,
my
though.
high number, and I almost
Yeah.
died.
No. I would never. Yeah. And, you know, I was doing 5 videos a week, and I realized that I was just a hamster on a wheel, just creating a whole bunch of stuff, and nothing was effective. So I started kind of dialing in on what really works. And then this year, when I went on that 56-day road trip, I hadn't missed a video. I'd made a weekly video for 4.5 years. And YouTube sent out a thing one day, and they're like, be careful of burnout. Feel free to take a break once in a while. It was just a generic message, but it hit me, and I was like, well, shit. So I took basically the 2 months off while I was down in Tennessee. And you know what happened? My channel kept growing. Now, you couldn't do it forever. Don't get me wrong. Like, if you're going to give up on something, but occasionally you got to step away from things. And I've realized that, again, family is the number one priority now. I didn't live it for a long time, but it's getting there. And then our businesses. And then third is the content creation. You know, it still makes good money, but I don't have to be absolutely married to it. So for us, it's there. And if we're doing things as a family, the podcast isn't going to happen this week. Or, you know, right now, Christmas is absolutely insane. So there's no review videos for the month of December. When I get back to January, they'll be there. And the channel still grows, but I'm happy with it. The work-life balance is way better. But that took a lot for me. Like, I mean, 4.5 years of content every single scheduled day and never missed a day. And finally, I just like, nope, I need to walk away or I'm never going to do it.
Yeah. Which is how
It took a lot for me listening to him. I got to go make a video. I got to go do this video. I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, I got to go do this. I'm like, no, you don't.
You don't have to. You're right. And it took me
don't
4.5 years to hear it, but I did.
Yeah, we went into crazy schedule here for December. I dropped from 5 shows to 3 shows this year.
Yes.
Over the course of the year. And I'm a little on the fence. Like, I'm going to be doing some journaling on this when I take my 2 weeks off starting next week about if we drop to 2 or not. And part of that is looking at what's effective. The Monday show has always been like, that's how the podcast started, right? So it's always been a crowd pleaser. And people have fun on Homestead Happenings. Like, we have the most live interaction for that one, but that is the least downloaded podcast episode.
Right.
Except for sometimes it'll have like 5,000 downloads. And I'm like, why this week? Why this week? What happened this week?
Just enough for it to make you think, oh, maybe I shouldn't, you know?
Yeah.
And here's the other thing that we all need to hear is that there's always people who enjoy everything that we put out. And they do. And, you know, we owe our audience some things, but we don't owe them our peace of mind. And so even if there are a lot of people out there who love your 3 days a week, because people will always tell you afterwards, I really enjoyed that show. I wish you kept doing it. And they don't mean anything by it. They legitimately mean wonderful things. But for your own peace of mind, sometimes, even though people love something like the Patch of the Month Club or, you know, all kinds of other things, sometimes it just has to slide. Because if not, you're going to look back on the end of your life and be like, wow, I guess, well, at least I got, you know, patches out, you know, 7 years in a row, right?
Or at least I did that for the 6 people.
Yeah,
that,
you know, and
reached out to me and said they loved it, you know. Like,
and we love the people who listen and follow. We do,
Yeah.
but there definitely has to be a balance. Otherwise, you know, you're hooped, you know, and
yeah, like 5 days a week plus Thought of the Walk plus Unloose the Goose. Like, I remember that year.
yes,
And Unloose the Goose is a classic example. Everybody was super sad that it closed down. And we did a reunion episode in November and it was well received. And I was like, well, maybe we could do one a month. And I was like, but the reason that we ended up shuttering it is the geese, the most invested geese in making it happen, were doing all the work. And most of them were just flying in unprepared.
Yeah.
Or not showing up at the last minute after we had promoted that they would be there. And I was like, well, maybe we take that concept and have an all-star monthly meeting of the minds sort of thing at some point, but somebody has to do the work. Am I that person? Not right now. I am not that person right now because I have other shit to do. I've got like the coffee, realizing 20% of my time is 80% of my income. I'm like, what if I put 40% of my time into that? Like, what does that
Right.
look like financially? At the same time, Hollow Roast is not scalable the way I have built the brand because
Oh, okay.
its core differentiator is that it's craft coffee roasted to order. You know, like the story of the reason it's so good is I'm not doing it on a mass scale and storing it places, which is how you make money with coffee.
Right.
Is a lot larger. But I could totally launch a totally different brand with connections I have in the coffee industry now, and they they execute. But that's not Hollow Roast. So that's actually where I'm thinking, like, it's a totally new thing. So, you talk about doing less. So I'm like, hey, why don't I add this new thing?
But and talk about doing less. I was just going to be like, you know what you should do, Nicole? You should send some up here to Canada and start talk about doing less. Like if you didn't have enough to do, like, just saying.
But here's the thing. We all have 24 hours in the day, and we're going to fill it with something. So for you, you're not doing the wrong thing, Nicole, by looking at doing something different. You're looking at reaching out and trying. It's that damn spaghetti method over and over again. And it's the same, Brian Alexovich. He's my little punching bag because I love talking about him. He's great he just cut his podcast back from 5 days a week to 1 day a week. He launched a whole nother podcast that most people don't even know about yet. He's already made more money off of that than he did the entire time he did the Lots Project podcast. So you're always like, that's the fun part. When you have something that's kind of successful and it's making some money, you can rely on that, cut some of the fat off the sides, and then because you still got to do something with your time. So grab the next thing, try it, and see where you end up going. Like I've talked to maybe 3 or 4 very successful podcasters.
I'm going to interrupt and say you just solved the problem for me. That's it.
Okay.
You'll
write it down. Don't forget.
Holy cow. That just totally solved the problem.
That makes me happy. Well, here's the thing about podcasting. I've talked to guys who have very, very, very large download counts and don't make any money with podcasting because other than a very few people, and I'm not saying you can't do it, but I didn't listen to people when I started. I had a bunch of people who said, you're not going to make money in podcasting. You can make money through ancillary methods, like products and things like that. Turned out I'm not a product guy. So I figured out a way, my review videos I've talked to many people who my 25,000 subscribers on YouTube make infinitely more money than people who have 500,000 downloads for podcasts. I'm not saying that's always the case, but it's a lot of work. Most people podcasts become a labor of love. And I'm not trying to dissuade people from trying it, but it is a very, very rare amount of people who figure out a way to make money off a podcast. But a podcast can help things like your product, Nicole, like, coffee and that sort of thing. But remember, almost everybody, and I've talked to people who are in the movie podcasts, and I've talked to people into the prepper end of things, and they've both said the same thing, is that they basically break even, but the amount of time they put into it is tough. So just throwing it out there that just because something is doing numbers and people are watching it, you still got to justify your time, right? So yeah,
so Jack makes money on his because he has a membership program, but that's
100%.
just enough to pay a baseline, right?
Yep.
And if you think about how he's built prosperity, it's through affiliate arrangements. It's through, I think, Home Food Systems, his educational center, will do it.
Yep. Oh yeah, we were talking about that at SRF upstairs, and I mean Jack's a business person. Let me back up a little bit. He treated his podcast like a business from day one as well. And that's a big difference, and I also treated my YouTube channel like a business. And again, what does that mean? Cutting out the stuff that doesn't work and doing the stuff that does. So not trying to dissuade people from doing things, but just remember that podcasts themselves are a tough, if you're looking, don't just go 5 days a week right away and think, that's how I'm going to succeed. Cause you might burn yourself out or not do it. So,
well, and I see my podcast as a marketing and sales tool. Like, yes, I'm trying to enrich the network through telling stories, education, connecting with people like y'all so they can learn. obviously, but its payoff is its marketing and capacity, right? And then you have to be really careful what you market.
Right. I think you've seen that though, right? I mean, your brand would not have grown without your podcast. Am I right on that? Or at least it would have been a lot harder.
Hollow Roast would not exist in its current form, I don't think. I would have, if I was going to build a coffee brand with no podcast, I would have been putting it in grocery stores and boutiques and Airbnbs and doing the marketing and advertising locally, and it would be a local regional thing.
And that's I would guess, because you built your podcast first and then your coffee kind of sprung out of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was already roasting coffee, but it was just at the farmer's market.
Right.
And then people who listened to me were like, hey, so can I buy some of that? And then I was like, oh, my listeners are telling me what they want from me. I think I will, do what they say. And then it all grew from there. Yeah.
So you're a great example of, like, I mean, you couldn't just pull your plug on the podcast. You know what I mean? Like you would lose a community, and you would also eventually, it was always like Jack always said, if I passed away, he always wanted to have enough value in there that Dorothy would still be taken care of just with the membership. You know what I mean? But eventually that kind of stuff, no matter how much goodwill you build with people, will dry up eventually if you stop putting out goodwill, right? So you have to find the balance of where's life, how much can I do, and how much can I not do, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could end my I have no inclination to end my podcast, first of all, because you think about my original motivation for the podcast was that as a person inclined towards being a workaholic, I had no outlet for things, right?
Right.
And it was my only creative outlet for the first year.
Mm-hmm.
And then it led to me having confidence to do the transition away from the job I hated to what I'm doing now. And it's still that. And if it ever gets to a point where I'm just like, oh, I gotta do the podcast, I'm going to take a serious look at it. But it's not like that.
No.
Right. I got this morning. I did Pilates because that's my new morning habit I'm developing, is do it first time. Like my joints don't hurt when I do Pilates in the morning because the core is engaged. And then I'm like, and I get to go live with Becky and Tim. It's going to be fun, right? But, the amount of background research I did for this interview was also pretty non-existent.
I was going to say it'd probably be zero.
Hey, you want to do a show?
2 emails and a quick conversation at SOE. That was, but that's great. And again, but there's the social capital that we've built, right? All of this stuff wouldn't have happened without all that investment up front, right? And now, sometimes you can do, I don't mean autopilot, but you can have these episodes, you know what I mean? But then there's, so it's cool. I love it. I think it's pretty neat.
Yeah, I think so too. So what advice would you have for people who are like wanting to start right now, but they hear this and they're like, well, maybe I'll be doing too much. Like, what do you think the curve of starting your own thing really looks like? Do you think we all need to work ourselves into the point where we're like, crap, no, now I really need to say no? Or can you do it without that phase?
I don't think so. Go ahead, baby.
I don't think you and that's where it comes in. Like, it's funny though, because like my mantra is I never take no for an answer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's not, so it's like when I'm dealing with government and employees and stuff like that, I don't like no. I don't. But my other thing is that you have to say no sometimes, but like it's like a different type of situation, because like if, like, for example, when we were filing the grant, I just filed another grant and they messed up on their system, and it was closing at 2:00 Eastern time, and I got all my grant paperwork in midnight the night before. They sent me a message back saying that I missed the cutoff. And I'm like, so I went on and I screenshot, I took pictures, I time-stamped everything, and I sent it back. I said, no, you're not telling me no on this. And they accepted my grant paperwork. So like that type of situation, it's like, if you want to start something, you can't take no for an answer with that type of situation. Like you need to work for it. If people, like if you're selling coffee, for example, and you go into a store and they're like, no, we don't want this on the shelf. Don't just, oh, okay, and walk it. No, you stand there and you fight for that, right? Like you want, no, why can't you just put 2 bags right here? Why, like you want to be able to fight for that. So like that type of situation, you don't want to take no for an answer. But if you're dealing with employees and they're coming at you and they're like, oh, I need you to do this. I need you to do this. I need you to do that. And you're like, no, that's why I pay you. You're going to be doing that. And it's like no's on different levels.
I would say
like
it's not, okay. You are more of a, how can we, you know what I mean? Like instead of a no, like, because if somebody just comes back with a straight no, you're not like, well, yeah, we're going to do it. You're like, how do we do this? I always talk about, she's like in a maze, and she comes to a wall and she turns and goes the other way, because you're always like, when somebody says, no, this can't be done, you're like, no, hang on. How do we do this? No is not an answer when it comes to like building a business or getting something you want. But it doesn't even mean, like if an employee came to you and said, I legit can't do this, I don't have time, then you'll say, okay, how do we? Like with the
how can I help you? How can we do this?
What can we do to make this work? That's the no you don't take. Is the no just because, right? And you always come up with always comes up with a solution.
Yeah, and I think finding the right way to ask that question, like Becky's really good. I think she's a very good communicator. I haven't talked a lot to Becky, but she's very good at asking the right question in a way that's not like, and you feel really defensive about it. Right. So no to the coffee on the shelves. It's like, okay, so what has to change for this to be a yes, right? Is the question really. Is it because you have exclusive agreements with somebody? Is it because you don't want to put the employee time on it? Is because my label looks wrong and I need a different label? Like bag size doesn't fit the shelf. Like what is the thing that's in the way here? And if it's because you're a poopy head and I don't like you, okay, I might actually be like, I'm not going to get over the objection. So I'm going to go on to somebody who doesn't think I'm a poopy head. But, very often it's because you need the FDA number on the label in that case or whatever it is. Or they have exclusive agreements with Folgers or whatnot and aren't allowed to bring other coffee brands in because that happens at the grocery level.
100%.
Okay, well, then how do I get an agreement like that?
Right.
Exactly.
How do I? Yes. Yeah. How do what? And that's, here's the other thing too, is if you want a yes on something, do as much work for that person to make it as easy as you can for them to say yes.
Yeah. And I find I do that a lot with
government.
Like it's like with the health inspector, fire inspector, I do all my legwork to make their life as easy as possible. So like because when we're expanding upstairs and I'm on a first name basis with the building inspector, I have him in my phone as a text message. So when I texted him a couple months ago and I said, hey, we're expanding upstairs. It's at the Lecky building. The last time you were here, it was just the fire alarm system. That's the only thing he had the issue with. And I told him that we're expanding upstairs. This is what we're doing. Yeah. And he goes, all right, just send me a picture when you're done and I'll forward you over the paper. He doesn't even, and I said, do you want to come to the building? He goes, nah, I don't need to. So it's just basically I did all the leg work for him. So I have his inspection. I'm like, we have this, and this. You said we needed this. Here's the picture to prove we did this. And then he'll send me over the inspection. He'll send it as an email. I send him a $300 payment. Done. Same with the health inspector. I do all the legwork for them, and they appreciate that. They love it. Just makes their jobs easier. Licensing the same way. They come down and I have all their inspections. I just cross my T's and dot my I's for them, and I pass them everything they need. And they kind of look at me like, "Oh, well, you just did my job for me." And I'm like, well, absolutely, because I don't want you here any longer than I need you here. Right?
110%.
I don't even know about. Yeah.
Yeah. Personally, I don't even really want you here, but I know you have to be here. So I'll just make your life easier and I'll do everything that you need me to do to get you here, sign it off, get out of my building. And that's basically what I want. Like, that's what I do for them. And when you're starting a business, and if anything like that, try to do as much legwork to make the difficult people's jobs easier. And then they will totally look at you, and then you just relieved a lot of stress right there.
That's the same thing goes for when you're asking for people to help cross promote you, right? So in our network, you'll get the email, hey, could you cover my course that I'm launching for sale? Well, you know what I really needed? This is the text I suggest you paste on Facebook, and here's a graphic, and then I can adjust it. I don't care about the affiliate links. I won't do that every single time if I get a lot of them, but I'm perfectly happy to cross promote stuff.
Absolutely. Make it easy.
Yeah, make it a no-brainer, right? You know, like every blog post Jack has ever written about anything I've done has not been written by Jack. Just spoiler alert.
Yeah, no doubt. It happens.
And he won't care. You know, he's like, well, write the blog post. Yeah, of course I'll write the blog post, because why wouldn't I write the blog post? Angie says, I know Tim ramped up his YouTube channel. Will you tell us what you did to ramp it up? Just more videos or other things too? Because you made 20,000 this year, which is awesome.
Yeah. I'm pretty close. Probably I'll hit 25 here in the next 2 months, maybe. Christmas time is a slow time for content. So you tend to get like half the views and half the subscribers. But I guess I would say, I'll go back just a hair here on this, but you were talking about, like, do you have to get into that like crazy bubble for a little bit before you decide what works? If it's your first business, probably, because if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to be passionate about it. You're going to be a workaholic, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes, because the only way to find what works is to do a whole bunch of shit that doesn't work. And when you find out what doesn't work, the faster you do it, the better you get at it. Like with the daycare, the first one took so much stress to open, and the next 3 have been very smooth, and each one gets progressively smoother because you learn from your mistakes. Now, as far as the YouTube channel, for me, again, it was doing a whole bunch of stuff at first. Now, there are people who have grown a lot faster than me there's a learning curve to making content creation. And I found a big portion of that early on, but then there's some people that found way bigger than I did, and then some people that found way smaller. So you've got to find your learning curve, and there's no easy way to explain it, but you need to start with what you're going to do. And then you need to let your audience, when I say audience, I mean numbers. You got to look at everything, and each time something works, you got to do more of that. And of course, do less of the thing that doesn't. But for me, my big game, there's no easy, like, I know the next thing I need to really improve again is my thumbnails. And that might sound really unsexy, but that's where my next big area of gain is for videos. But I now have a formula for a good working video for my channel and my audience. You know, I know it's 10 minutes. I know what I need to film. You know, I know I need to film about 20, 25 minutes of content. I have an outline for that review. You know, there's about 8 points that I have to fill in. I know the B-roll I need to put in there. I know how I'm going to I use TubeBuddy to find a perfect title and description. So I have that entire process down. So that's now become streamlined. So now it's find the next thing that I can improve. Now, some people might find that really, really quick. You know, you might find it in 6 months. For me, it took 3 years of making really crappy content. Not, you know, but I mean, it really was, like, when I look back on it. But it took me about 3 years to really find what was working for me and then embrace it. But once you do, you'll hit whatever you consider big numbers. But that's what it is. You just have to keep putting in the motions every single week. You have to commit to doing it all the time, and you have to commit to improving one thing each time, and listen to other people too that have done it. But you can't just take somebody else's successful formula and copy it, because it's not going to work for you for 1,000 reasons. You've got to find that formula, but once you find it, embrace it and run with it.
And you can copy your own formula.
Oh, 100%. Yes, you can, you know, I could now take, which I'm going to do, the workshop, Toolman Tim's workshop formula, and I'm going to move it over to, you know, workshop household products. And I can totally take that formula and scale it, because I already know what I need. I know what works for my personality, the way I speak, and it'll work.
And I talked him into that because I like buying things on Amazon.
Absolutely. Coffee straw. You know what I mean?
I'm going to do the videos I'm going to do some with him because there is so much crap I buy on Amazon. I'm like, and I'll even review it myself. I'll be in the living room and I'll tell him, I'll be like, oh man, this is the best thing I've ever bought on Amazon. And then other times I'm like, this thing's nothing but crap, you know? So it's like,
but you know what?
I'm always reviewing myself. So.
Review videos make us money, and they make a lot of money. So it makes sense for me to do more review videos and less podcasts and less patch of the month. So that to bring it all the way around to where we started, that's, again, you eliminate other things, but I'm not just going to sit in the living room and listen to the dogs bark all day. I'm going to fill that time with something else. So the next thing you do after you cut that out is find something that fulfills you, makes you happy, and hopefully also makes you money to fill it in. And it's okay to try new things, throw some new things every so often, because as an entrepreneur or a content creator, we all need stimulation. That's what we're after. And hopefully it makes me happy, what makes me money, and what doesn't allow me to beat my head against a wall.
Well, it's interesting because you answered a question differently than most content creators do. And the one thing that I really hope Angie heard was you can't copy somebody else's formula and necessarily have that work for you.
Right.
You have to figure out what your formula is. And the only way to do that is trial and error and working on one thing at a time, which means you just have to start making crappy videos.
100%.
And a lot of people get stuck behind the crappy video things. My channel is full of crappy videos. I've actually put very little time in trying to find that formula for my YouTube because it's not where I get the most.
Exactly.
It's the audio side for me, and it always has been. And part of that is because I visually don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Like in my life, don't care. And I was like, I'm just not a video person naturally. So that might be something I play with this year. That's actually on the list of things I may play with. But I think it's important to know that because you can take somebody else's formula, copy it, and that's your starting point if that makes it easier for you. But figuring out what your formula is, what naturally fits with your personality is something that takes trial and error and listening to feedback of people who listen to you and deciding what you're going to take and what you're not going to take. And then eventually you'll have a system and it's easy. But at first it's an enormous pain in the butt. It takes a lot of time. 100%
it is. And it's going to be miserable for a while. And yeah, I mean, there's so many things you could do, and what's a hard. Oh yeah. So go, Hardway Alaska says, my channel is all over the place. Lifestyle, prepping, sewing. Should I start other channels to organize them? I mean, depending on what your end result is, if you want to build something that's around all three of those, it's going to be way harder than just, the old YouTube mantra of niching down. It's true because people come to your channel for a specific thing. Now, here's the thing though. If you split into 3 or 4 channels, none of them are going to be any good. That's the truth of it. So with YouTube, if you really want, and I mean, this depends on what your idea of success is, but if you want to make money on YouTube, you really got to find one thing that works and keep doing it over and over and over and over again. It becomes a bit of a job, but figure out a way to make that fun. Because if you try to do all kinds of things on a YouTube channel, you're not going to get the explosive or specific growth that you want. Now, if it is just a creative outlet for you and that's what you want to do, then go ahead. But if you want to find that true hard success that's going to bring you in money, views, subscribers, a community, you seriously have to find the one thing that works for you and just do it over and over. I laugh. I look at TubeBuddy, for instance. I love that channel. They make the same damn video or the same 3 videos every month. They name it something different. They package it slightly different, but it's the same video every month. And you know what? They get 60 to 100 to 200,000 views on every one of those videos. Because guess what? There's a million people out there wondering, should I split my video or my channel into 4 channels? Or how do I get to 1,000 subscribers? They just keep remaking the video. And if that's not your thing, then it might not be. But yeah, if you want to find that pure success, you got to find the thing that works and just keep doing it over and over again.
Yep, 100%. Okay, well, let's wrap up. I've kept you guys for a little over an hour. We went over time.
That's
Oh,
okay. No worries.
We've got no plans today.
I mean, we got a little bit, but nothing serious
Yeah.
today. So
planning
it's a
your
good day.
vacations for next year, right?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
that and just it's going to be a hectic week. We've got trips to Lloyd, we got Christmas parties, we got Santa coming to the daycare on Friday, and it's just we're all over the place.
And I went to an Oilers game last night in Edmonton. It's a 3-hour drive each way, so I didn't get home till 1:00 last night. So I was excited to get up and get going this morning.
Yeah,
but
you really wanted an early morning podcast on your to-do list today. Right?
No, it was I do it in a heartbeat. I loved it.
But then you look at the time, it's like, how is it December 17th?
Mm-hmm. Is it really the 17th?
Yeah. Where did November go? Because November's like 900 days long, so I don't even know where this month went. So.
It's because Thanksgiving was so late in the month, and then it was December, and yeah, mailing deadline is tomorrow for getting things before Christmas here because our mail system isn't on strike.
To work today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our deadline for getting anything in regular Canada Post for Christmas was probably November 1st because I've got stuff that's been tied up in Canada Post since November 10th.
They've just
been there a while
today.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get anything from them.
Because we all know forcing a union to go back to work will definitely improve morale.
It'll be quality.
Yes. What do they say?
Quality.
The beatings will continue until morale improves.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's going to be a gong show.
So what are you looking forward to most over the Christmas break?
Well, we're closing all 3 daycares for the week. So that'll be nice. And we're going to Mexico the first week in January. That was the kids' Christmas presents this year. And honestly, just like we have some renovations to do in the Provost daycare. I don't know if we're going to get it done over Christmas week or not. But honestly, I'm looking forward to my phone not buzzing, not calling, no emails, because even the government offices are closed all next week. So there's going to be no emails, no phone buzzing.
I'm looking forward to having her off her phone for a week too. It'll be nice.
So yeah, I'm looking forward
busy.
I'll still text everybody and stuff, but I won't have to deal with emails or parent phone calls or like any of that. And I'm looking forward to having a nice quiet week. It'll be nice. I haven't had it for a long time.
My son-in-law, Curtis, he's my right-hand man. He's my employee, but also just, good buddy of mine. We've been doing the renovations at the daycare for the upstairs expansion. And sorry about the dogs.
We have delivery drivers.
Amazon's here.
You have a life at your house where your studio is. Okay.
So I originally shot for having the renovations done for mid-March, and we're going to have them done before we break on Christmas. So we go up tomorrow, actually, and that'll be, so I'm actually looking forward to, I've got an apartment down here that needs to be painted. So we're going to do that over Christmas, spend some time with the family. And we'll see how Mexico goes, because I've never gone on a vacation. We've never gone on a vacation where we just sit and do nothing.
It's not going to be good.
I don't know how that's going to, I know that sounds like it must be nice, but it is. Yeah, I don't know.
We've never gone I'd like to say I'm not going to take my laptop, but I'm probably going to take my laptop.
I know you will, and that's fine.
And I would like to have it where I'm not working, but it's not going to happen. And I don't know. I just can't do those vacations where you just sit and do nothing. I don't know how people do that.
And that's the life of an entrepreneur too. When it all comes down to it is, we travel. We just spent a week in Tennessee with, but you know what? Guess what? Part of that trade-off is, we get to sleep in a hotel in Atlanta and go shopping, but you have to answer 1,000 phone calls, and I have to send out, a vac truck to clean out a stuck sewer line at a rental property, and all kinds of things, right? Yeah. So we still have to deal with it. So it's just, you don't get to switch off, but you get to, I guess you get to choose the amount of active participation you take. So but really, I'm just looking forward to spending time with the family and having a hell of a time. There's no sports practices over the Christmas break. So basically, as of Thursday. Yeah. So Thursday's the last event. After that, we have, I bet you 2 solid weeks with nothing, and I'm excited. Yeah. So anyway, there you go. That's what we're looking forward to. Time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to 2 weeks off. During that time, Hollow Roast Coffee will still ship, but on a truncated schedule, just because orders will come in, and that is what it is.
Yep.
But this is the last 2 years when I take my week off, I've traveled so dang much, or I've
Yes.
had so many, like I went to California and back last time, and that's great. And I got to spend time with my family, but I was exhausted when I got back. And then it was time to start again. And I hadn't really spent the time thinking about fundamentals going into 2025. This year, I actually get to do it for I've taken 2 full weeks off, none of this week and a half crap, 2
Good
full
for you.
weeks off. And then of course there are the various and sundries unfinished construction things that I'll pick at, and I'm gonna invest significant time in tax preparation.
Oh.
But then it'll be done.
I hired Tessa. I don't have to do any of that this year, which is wonderful.
Yay! I would love to build myself to that place. We're not there yet, but I have.
Keep going.
Yeah, so I'm really thinking about the fundamentals for the year, the foundation that has to be there during that time, and that's something I'm looking forward to. So
I say, if Tessa knew American taxes, I'd lend her to you.
She'd get you in trouble.
She'd probably get you in trouble. I have somebody who does the taxes, but I've got to get all the coding done. And somebody came into my business this year and set up QuickBooks properly, made sure everything was right. And she's somebody who's been at COO level jobs for a long time. And it's because I've taken 3 runs at getting that done for my company with different people. And she was like, I get it. It's complex because I'm doing multiple business units, right? And QuickBooks launched a new way. They launched tagging this year. So that actually improved how I could track and see what was really going on. And then she just dove in. She's like, send me all your stuff in a CSV. And she just made it happen.
Nice. Yeah. That's what Tessa uses is QuickBooks, and I'll log in there and I'll look at some of the stuff and I'm like, oh yeah, log out.
I hate it, but it's pretty much the only thing that really has worked. And I tried some other systems, but like I'm excited because this is going to be the year where I'm not like sweating it all through January because 1099's got to go out and all of that, and I have no clue how to get those reports done. So. Yeah,
QuickBooks is actually a good system once you realize how to use it.
Yeah.
I haven't taken the time to learn it yet because
But you don't have to.
No,
you won't.
It's above my pay grade. So
I'm learning my interaction with it, and I actually did a lot of QuickBooks at my first few jobs out of college. So it's not like I don't understand some of the things, but there are higher level things where I'm like, this is the list of questions of I don't know how to code that, but I can like knock out, what went to SRF versus Hollow Roast versus the podcast. And I can tell if a shipping expense is different than a utility. So ultimately, all of that will be outsourced to somebody, but I need it caught up, tidy, the process understood, and then it can go.
Yeah, she just messaged me the other night and she's like, I need all your receipts.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'm like, well, and it's probably going to take me a better part of a month to get all those receipts because we've got about 6 different credit cards and 2 different Amazon accounts. And I'm just like, yeah. She goes, I need them all. And I'm like, I don't think there's enough paper in this house to all those, but
can't we just scan them?
That's my job for January. I have to get her all the receipts.
Wow. Well, guys, thanks for making time to talk to us. I'm really excited for seeing how your next year goes. And
so are we.
Glad you made time to talk about this topic because we don't talk about this topic enough. Once we go big, going priority.
Yep. That's what it is. 100%. That's figure out what's the most important to you and just keep doing it and get rid of everything else and take a hard knife to it and get rid of it. So,
and there's something you want to do because I can't remember who we were talking to. I think it was AJ. He said that his wife likes to go on trips. And I told him, I said, well, she has to get over to Europe. And of course his automatic answer is, well, we can't afford that right now. But that's okay. But don't let that be your instant answer. If you want to go, because like you always refer to Kathy.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lady here in town. Her name is Kathy. Wonderful lady. She works at the plumbing. Her husband owned his own business, worked 7 days a week, 15, 16-hour days, always told her, I'm going to take you on trips. We're going to travel. We're going to travel someday. Once things slow down and everything, he ended up dying of a heart attack in his early 50s.
On the treadmill at home.
On the treadmill at home. Never went on a vacation. Never. Don't let the whole we can't afford that get in the way, because you can. And that's because, and like I said, anybody can reach out to me. I travel a lot, but I travel on a budget, and I look for sales. I look for deals. Like I even told them, I'm like, I know you guys don't have WestJet, but here up in Canada, we have WestJet. In March, you can fly one way to Paris from Edmonton for $189. Right. So like that's less than $200. So that's $400 round trip. It might not seem like that might seem like a lot of money, but you know what, if you save, even $20, right? Like, but if you want to go do something, or you want to go on a trip, don't let that be your default. You need to do that, because you don't want to be like Kathy's in her 70s now, and she's never been anywhere.
So she watches us vicariously and cheers us on now, which is awesome. But you like I said, by many people, you can do anything you want to do, just not everything you want to do. So figure out what your priority is, but even if you do want to do it, you can work for it. Oh, 100%.
And you can save for it. You can budget for it. Like if you're like, oh man, I really, 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 really want to go to the Grand Canyon. You know what? Put $5 away a week. You know what I mean? Like drive there. Like it's just one of those things.
You can camp at the Grand Canyon.
How can you, right? How can you, as opposed to no, right?
Exactly. Yeah. How can you? But don't ever let that, I don't think we can afford this, or I don't think I have the time to do this. Don't ever let that be your default.
Yeah, because I figured out on travel long ago, if you can get the ticket, you'll figure the rest out. Exactly. And so for a long time, I went to a new country every year. And some of them were more expensive than others, but I found if you go on the edges of the high season, you'll get the $600 round trip ticket, or the $400 round trip ticket somewhere like Thailand. And then once you get there, especially somewhere like Thailand, like you're not spending that much for lodging unless you're going to the top high-end skyrise hotels. But you have to be willing to figure it out, first of all. And secondly, you might end up in a situation that is less comfortable than you thought. Like I always booked places that had air conditioning in the room because it's hot there and I don't sleep well. And, one of the rooms, the air conditioning didn't work, but it was $10 a night. So I was like, well, I'm going to have 2 uncomfortable nights here, and then I'm moving on to the next one. When you pay a tour guide or a tour company to run you around on a bus, that's where you're looking at $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 vacations.
100%.
But even Europe doesn't have to be expensive.
It wasn't
more than $10 a night, but it doesn't have to be expensive.
Well, there was 7 of us that went 2 years ago, and with flights, hotels, food, and everything, all 7 of us, it was under $10,000. And I know that seems like a lot of money, but there was 7 of us, and that was everything. And that's because I took the time. We rented a vehicle, which was absolutely, like, my sister still tells me I'm insane for driving over there. But you know what? We're not going to pay for Ubers and trains and everything. Like when you can rent a vehicle and you just travel on a budget. Like we went to the grocery store and we spent £100 and we bought loaves of bread and lunch meat, and we made sandwiches in the room for lunch instead of going out and eating. It's just, and travel might not be everybody's ticket, but if you want that new sweater, buy that sweater. You know what I mean? Like, or you want something for your house, buy it. Like, and it doesn't have to be expensive, but save up for it. But I think what irritates me the most is the people who constantly live in regret. Mm-hmm. Oh, I wish I would have. I wish I would have. I wish I got that. I wish I got that. But if you work for it or you save for it, you can get it.
I mean, buy that coffee roaster or buy that therapeutic pool. You know what I mean?
Buy the swim spa, man. Like it took me a year. Once I committed to knowing I wanted it, it took me 6 months to figure out how to make it happen financially.
Right.
And
because you did.
Before then, it was like, that's a lot of money, but I figured it out.
But even those entrepreneurs who make lots of money, And they're like, oh, well, I just want to save, save, save. Famous word, you cannot take it with you.
So
Just
enjoy
you know,
life.
we all come and go the same way in life, right? And at the end, we all leave the same way, and you can't take it with you. Enjoy it. And like, you know, like if you're busting your ass 7 days a week, you know what? Cut yourself down to 6 days a week and do something on a Sunday. Take your significant other shopping, take yourself shopping, go to the movies. Like, don't waste your entire life working to the point where you're just going to be sitting at home and regretting everything you didn't do.
Make sure you enjoy it.
Yeah, because like, and that's our running joke in our, like, my mom says to me, she goes, oh, well, like my mom's
Must be nice.
a must be nice person, but she's like that morbid person. So like, oh, well, your kids are going to have lots of money when you and Tim pass. And I'm like, absolutely not. I'm spending every damn dime. Like, I'm not working my ass off so my kids can fight over my money. No, I'm going to spend every damn dime. They're not getting nothing. And you know what? If they want something in life, they can work for it.
We're going to teach them how to work for it.
Yeah, I love my kids to death, but why should I work my entire life for me to be put into a nursing home and them enjoy my money that I busted my ass for? Nope. I'm enjoying everything. And I know that's a big thing for the boomers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, all leaving inheritances and stuff like that. You know what? No. If your kids want something, they need to work for it. If your family wants something, they need to work for it. If you're working your ass off, you spend every damn dime because it cannot go with you. And it's your money, you worked for it, you enjoy it. And that's my advice I can give to anybody. It's true. Like, I love my kids to death, but I will not leave them a single dime. I'm sorry. And I will make sure I spend it right up to my dying day. I will be on Amazon and I will max out every card I have just to make sure that those little shits don't get nothing. And like, you know, and I'll give them the shirt off my back now.
Yeah,
They're not getting anything. No, I'm not working my ass off for them to have a cushy life. And that's not how it's going to be. And that's good. That's the best advice I could give to anybody.
Yeah, I think when you really want something, figuring out how to do it is the best thing you can do for yourself, because once you've done that once, you can do it again.
Keep doing it and doing it.
And then you realize the payoff, like from a relationship standpoint, all of the things that come together. So I think that's a great way to wrap up this episode, guys. And I will see you two next year at some point. We've got one more show of Living Free in Tennessee on Friday, and it won't be a super long one, but it's the Homestead Happenings. Tactical will already be gone at his family Christmas, so I'm going solo unless we have a surprise guest, and there might be one. So you guys will just have to tune in for that. We'll see you next time.